In the early 1880s, a grand residence rose in the lower Blue Mountains, built for prominent businessman and politician Andrew McCulloch. This was the age when Sydney's lawmakers briefly escaped the city's stuffy chambers for fresh mountain air on their sprawling weekend estates. Eurama was McCulloch's proud monument, beautifully crafted stone walls, sweeping views, a retreat of status and quiet ambition. But time hasn't been so kind to it. The change of ownership was numerous, and for more than half a century it's been left to fester and crumble. Yet another piece of history sacrificed to neglect, and one that's seemingly more important to have on a property portfolio than to revive before it's too late. This is the story of Eurama and the long list of people who once claimed it as their own. Before Urama ever stood, the land on which it stands belonged to Sir Alfred Stephen, Chief Justice and respected legislator of New South Wales. In 1877, Stephen purchased the block and built his country retreat here. His neighbours weren't regular mountain settlers, but prominent men of the colony's intellectual and political life. Sir James Martin, Sir Henry Parkes, and Reverend Professor Charles Baddam. For 5 years, Stephen spent his weekends here in the mountains, sharing ideas and conversations far from Sydney's bustle. In the early 1880s, he sold the property to Andrew McCulloch for £3,800. When McCulloch took possession of the land, he set about building a country house of his own, not far from Sir James Martin's wooden retreat, Numantia. To bring his vision to life, he turned to a familiar craftsman, stonemason Paddy Ryan, who'd only recently been shaping reservoirs and laying the foundations for Martin's ill-fated mountain mansion. Using local stone, Paddy created a home that was both elegant and understated, its character grounded in the rugged landscape around it. Above the front doorway, he carved a heraldic blazon, Viet Animo, it reads, a Latin declaration meaning by strength and by courage. It was a fitting inscription for a house built from determination, ambition, and the stone of the mountain itself. McCulloch spared no expense when it came to furnishing his mountain retreat. To bring style and sophistication to his new family weekender, he hired the renowned design firm Leon Cottier & Co., a prestigious company with roots in London and branches stretching to New York and Sydney. Famous for their richly painted walls and ornate ceilings, the firm brought with them a world of luxury. Handcrafted ceramic tiles, stained glass, fine textiles and elegant lighting. In the quiet bush of the Blue Mountains, McCulloch created a retreat dressed in the grandeur of international design. McCulloch didn't just build a house, he crafted an estate. Terraced gardens wrapped around the property, with winding paths leading to quiet corners and bushland views. There was a tennis court for leisure, and an ornamental lake formed by damming the gully between his land and Charles Baddam's. What may have been a pool is located above the lake, carved from an open section of rock. Perfect holes are located near each corner, possibly where posts were secured for a fence. The submerged car that sits in it now is definitely not something McCulloch had in mind 150 years ago. McCulloch called his mountain retreat Weemala, an Aboriginal word said to mean expansive view. It was a fitting name for a home perched above the valleys. But by the late 1880s, McCulloch's fortunes had shifted. Finances tightened, and in 1889, he sold Weemala to John William Cliff, a man already renting Sir James Martin's nearby Numantia, a new custodian for the mountain home, and the next chapter in its winding story. For John William Cliff, fortune also began to slip. Keeping up 2 residences and the extensive gardens proved more than he could manage. The dam that once formed the ornamental lake failed, and Cliff, short on funds and enthusiasm, left it unrestored. Over the years, the once graceful grounds faded, slowly surrendering to neglect. After holding on for as long as he could, Cliff eventually let the property go. Around 1896, Weemala passed into new hands, this time to solicitor George Evans. Evans had a story as layered as the house he purchased. Born in England to a wealthy family, he arrived in Australia in 1852 with his father, who'd been financially ruined through speculation in wheat. And get this, his family paid his eye-watering debts on a condition that he'd permanently change his identity and move to the colonies. The young George kept the surname Evans, never revealing his original family name, and went on to carve out a successful career as a lawyer. But the pull of the mountains, the same draw that had lured Sir Alfred Stephen and Sir James Martin, was irresistible. When the chance to purchase Weemala arose, he took it, beginning his own chapter in the estate's story. At that point, the land, now somewhat neglected, overgrown and in disrepair, totaled about 113 acres. Evans gave the property a new identity, calling it Eurama, a playful Grecian nod meaning wonderful view. Not content with just one estate, he also acquired the neighbouring Numantia, once the retreat of Sir James Martin, who'd passed away 21 years earlier. Rather than keep Martin's original name for the wooden house, Evans opted to rename it Weemala, taking not only the home itself, but also the private rail platform and the sandstone outbuildings, the kitchen and skillion, into his possession. Today these buildings sit by the railway, completely vandalised with graffiti. He sold off the private railway platform and employed the new owners of the station to housekeep Weemala and to look after his dairy cows. Evans poured himself into Eurama. He repaired the broken dam, cleared overgrown gardens, and edged winding paths with stone. When the lake refilled, he even set a rowboat afloat on its surface to use for exercise. A close friend, the director of Sydney's Botanical Gardens, helped him transform the terraces, supplying exotic trees and plants that brought new life and colour to the estate. After Evans died in 1910, Eurama passed into the hands of his daughter, Emily McLaurin, who moved there with her husband James from their sheep and cattle farm on the McIntyre River. During World War I, Emily transformed Eurama into the headquarters for the war effort in the mountains. By 1920, ill health prompted Emily to move to England, and she sold Eurama to Gilbert Nathan, a prominent English musician and a cousin of her husband. Nathan adored the property, but his wife refused to live in Australia. The estate soon changed hands again, passing this time to an accountant named Brown. After Mrs. Daisy Brown's death in the 1940s, the stone house fell silent, unoccupied, and began to suffer the slow decay of neglect and vandalism. A development company eventually bought the estate, hoping to breathe new life into it, but council rejected their plans. The property changed hands again, this time to a Mr. Adams, who took on the ambitious task of restoring the grand old house. Eurama shone again, its stone walls and stately rooms revived in all their former elegance. But fate had other plans. In November 1968, a fierce bushfire swept through the landscape, and the house, newly restored and full of promise, was reduced to a shell. In the aftermath, the ruin was acquired by Mr. Watkin, a local timber merchant. He added a large machinery shed to the estate, a structure that still stands today. In 1977, fire also destroyed Weemala, Sir James Martin's former weekender. Decades later, in 2004, the estate was sold to a development company which had grand plans for subdivision. Those ambitions never came to pass, and in 2015, the property was sold for $1.2 million to the Chinese-based Donghua Group. Is it still in their hands? Quite possibly. Today, the ruins stand as a crumbling shadow of a once stylish estate, a place that saw laughter, ambition, financial struggles, and a parade of owners. Can a forgotten home ever truly come back to life? Somehow, it seems unlikely anytime soon.